Hello everyone and welcome to the online learning classes of English for class 11th CBSE students. I'm Ms. Anita Rawat. Today in this video I'll be discussing the very first poem from your textbook Hornbill, a photograph by Shirley Toulson. In this poem, the poet is very fondly remembering her mother. She's recalling some happy moments that she spent with her mother. Now the mother is no more. So the poet is feeling very nostalgic. Before we begin the poem, let's have a quick look at the difficult words used in the poem. Paddling means walking through shallow water. Transient means temporary, something that is short-lived, something that is not permanent. A snapshot means a photograph taken very quickly. Wry means expressing both disappointment and amusement. Labored means forced. And ease means to make something less painful. So now let's see the poem. Look at the first stanza. The cardboard shows me how it was when the two girl cousins went paddling, each one holding one of my mother's hands, and she, the big girl, some 12 years or so. All three stood still to smile through their hair at the uncle with the camera. A sweet face, my mother's, that was before I was born. And the sea, which appears to have changed less, washed their terribly transient feet. Now let's see the explanation of the first stanza. This stanza describes the poet looking at an old photograph of a mother. Here the word cardboard denotes the base for the photograph. In olden times, people used to paste the photograph on a cardboard to preserve it. So the poet is looking at one such photograph of her mother. This photograph was taken when her mother was only 12 years old. So this was the childhood photograph of the poet's mother. In the photograph, the poet saw that her mother was enjoying a sea holiday with her two cousins, Betty and Dolly. The poet's mother was in the middle, and she was the oldest of all the three girls. Her cousins were holding her hands as they were standing on the beach. Their uncle was capturing this happy moment in the camera. He was taking their photograph. And all three girls were smiling while the sea breeze blew their hair all across their faces. This photograph was taken when the mother was only 12 years old, so naturally it was long before the birth of the poet. Their footprints were washed away by the sea waves. The poet describes their feet as terribly transient, thus indicating that human life is very short-lived. She also indicates the permanence of nature by describing the sea as constant and unchanged. Here, terribly transient feet is an example of transferred epithet. Here, the transience of human existence is transferred to feet. So this is a very good example of the poetic device, transferred epithet. Now let's see the key points of stanza 1. This poem is a tribute to the poet's mother. The poet is looking at an old photograph of a mother which is pasted on a cardboard. The picture has three girls, in which the middle one is the oldest and the tallest. She is the poet's mother. She is with her two girl cousins, Betty and Dolly, who are holding her hands and are younger than her. This photograph was taken when her mother was only 12 years old. All three of them were enjoying their sea holiday. They were walking through shallow water on the beach. Their uncle took the photograph. Their hair was scattered all over their faces, and all three of them were smiling as they were posing for the photograph. Their footprints were quickly washed away by the sea waves. The expression transient feet indicates that human life is short lived. The unchanged sea symbolizes permanence of nature. Now let's switch over to the second stanza. Some 20-30 years later, she would laugh at the snapshot. See, Betty and Dolly, she would say, and look how they dressed us for the beach. The sea holiday was her past, mine is her laughter. Both wry with the labored ease of loss. Now let's see the explanation. The second stanza talks of a time, some 20-30 years later, when the mother would show the photograph to the poet and would laugh. She would point out at the dress they were wearing for the beach holiday. She would find it very funny the way they were dressed up. Her laugh shows that she had very happy childhood. And the sweet memories of her childhood were making her smile. So she was remembering her childhood with a lot of fondness. Now here you can see these three pictures showing three phases of life. In the first photograph, you can see this is the photograph of the poet's mother's childhood, when her mother was enjoying her sea holiday with her cousins. The second photograph shows mother's middle age, when she was showing this photograph to the poet. And look at the third photograph. This was after the death of the poet's mother. The poet was left all alone and she was missing and she was remembering her mother. So see these lines, that the sea holiday was her past and mine is her laughter. Both wry with the labored ease of loss. The poet's mother was smiling and laughing when she was showing this photograph to the poet, but her laughter was tinged with nostalgia, as it had become a thing of past for her. And similarly, the mother's laughter had become a thing of past for the poet, as the poet had lost her mother. In both the cases, the loss wasn't easy to deal with, but both were trying hard to come in terms with their respective losses, and they were trying to make it seem easy. So their laughter is wry, means it had tinge of both sadness and amusement. They were sad because of the losses and amused as they were remembering some very fond memories. You can see the use of poetic device oxymoron here. In oxymoron, two opposite words are used together. Here you see the words labored ease of loss. Labored means taking a lot of efforts, and ease suggests effortlessness. So this is an example of oxymoron. Now let's see the key points of stanza 2. After a lapse of some 20-30 years, her mother would show her the photograph and would laugh, telling her how their parents dressed them for the beach holiday. The beach holiday was her mother's favorite past memory, while her mother's laughter was the poet's favorite memory. Both lost these cherished moments, but they tried to come to terms with their respective losses. Now let's see the third stanza. Now she's been dead nearly as many years as that girl lived. And of this circumstance, there is nothing to say at all. Its silence silences. Here we find the poet very sad, remembering her mother, who passed away some 12 years back. The expression, this circumstance, refers to the death of the poet's mother. Her death has left such a vacuum in her life that it can't be expressed in words. Where once there was laughter, now there were tears. The poet would never hear the laughter of her mother again. and the loss is so great that she can't express it in words. Even though her mother has been dead for about 12 years, but the poet can't bear her absence, and it has made her completely silent and speechless. So let's see the key points of stanza 3. Now, the poet's mother has been dead for the past 12 years, which is the same number as of her age when the photograph was taken back then. It is a solemn moment for her, a very sad and serious moment for her. She can't express the grief that her mother's absence has caused in her life. So, this is the very sad end of the poem. Now, let's see poetic devices used in the poem. You can see 3 examples of alliteration, repetition of the same sound at the beginning of the words. The first example is still. Then the next example, terribly transient. And one more example of alliteration, silence, silences. Then you can see use of the poetic device transferred epithet in the expression terribly transient feet. There is one example of oxymoron in the expression labored ease. And you can also see use of contrast, see which appears to have changed less. And then on the other side, you can see terribly transient feet. So see, contrast you can see in eternal nature and temporary human life. Let me tell you about some important expressions and let's see the explanation. Look at the use of the word cardboard in the very first line of the poem. Cardboard denotes the photograph pasted on a thick paper. It also refers to the lifeless cardboard as her mother was no more and only cardboard remained there. Second expression, to smile through their hair. Their hair was scattered all over their faces due to breeze, and they were smiling as they were posing for the photograph. Both rhyme with the labored ease of loss. Both mother and daughter had suffered losses. The poet's mother had lost her happy childhood days, while mother's laughter was a thing of past for the poet as she had lost her mother. So both were trying hard to come to terms with their respective losses. Its silence silences. The void created by the death of the poet's mother leaves her silent, and she can't express her pain in words. So that's all about the poem. I'm sure you must have understood it. Thank you.